Bienvenidos a Capítulo Preliminar, Bienvenidos, parte 2. Today, in the second part of this tutorial of the Capítulo Preliminar, the first chapter that we see in Mosaicos, we're going to be going over the following. Use of numbers from 0 to 99, expression of dates, telling time, commenting on weather, and finally I'll mention briefly the use of classroom expressions. Let's begin here with los números. Los números on page 14, en la página 14, we see a description of numbers, the construction of Spanish numbers from 0 to 99. So let me go ahead and I'll give you a quick idea of the correct pronunciation from 0 to 20. And then once we get to 20, we'll discuss very briefly again, the construction of what it is that we're looking at with how do we create numbers from 20 on up to 99. So we begin with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so once we get to 20 or 20 in Spanish, what we're going to see here is from 20 to 29, we see, for example, 21, 21, 22, 23. That it's actually it's formed as just one word. So we see here part of the word 20 as 20, and it ends with the I, and we just tack on either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. Once we get to 30, however, we see something a little bit different. So 30 all the way up to the 90s, we see here now 31. Of course, y is the Spanish word for the word and in English. So we see here 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, etc. And we see another example here with 40, 41, 41, 42, 43, etc. Expressing dates in Spanish. So we see here los meses del año, the months of the year. Enero, febrero, marzo, abril, mayo, junio, julio, agosto, septiembre, octubre, noviembre, diciembre. Y acá tenemos los días de la semana. So the days of the week. Lunes, martes, miércoles, jueves, viernes, sábado, domingo. Telling time in Spanish, la hora. So with telling time in Spanish, what we're going to look at here is, first off, we're going to use, let's go down here to the bottom where we see a brief explanation. And we use the verb ser meaning to be, when describing the time. And this is something we looked at very briefly before. But we remember that we're going to use the conjugation, the third person conjugation of es for describing 1 o'clock. And we use son to describe any time between 2 o'clock and 12 o'clock. So, for example, the 1 o'clock. Es la una. Es la 1:30. Es la 1:20, etc. However, from 2 o'clock onward, so from 2 o'clock to 12 o'clock, we see that we're going to be using the plural third person form of the verb ser, which is son. So for 2 o'clock, son las 2. Son las 4:30. Son las 7:15. Okay? And so that will give us a really good idea of how we're going to express the time in Spanish. However, by studying the book and looking at some more examples that are in the book, and it looks like it's going to be on page 18 of our textbook. We'll give you a really good idea of how to use that. And then finally, el tiempo. El tiempo. So el tiempo is going to be, in Spanish, tiempo can refer to either time or the weather. Okay, so in this case, we're discussing the weather. So we use the verb hacer to describe the weather in this case here. Que, the word que, means what. Tiempo, as I just mentioned, is the word for the weather. So the sentence, the question, ¿Qué tiempo hace? Refers to what's the weather like? ¿Qué tiempo hace? Okay, we can answer this here now in the following ways. Hace buen tiempo, the weather is good. Hace mal tiempo, the weather is bad. Okay, so there's a few other ways to describe this, and on page 19, the book will give you a little better explanation, such as saying it's sunny, hace sol, or it's raining, llueve, or está lloviendo. Okay, and so by studying the book and this tutorial, I think you'll have a very good idea of how to briefly talk about the weather. And so again, this first chapter, in my opinion, is a little strange, but it's really just a compilation of a lot of different things that one must know to really initiate a conversation in Spanish. And so I believe that's why the authors decided to include such things as the weather, along with telling time, along with introducing your own name, things like that. And the final section, and I'll go ahead and X out right here. The final section is going to be using classroom expressions. And this is something I just wanted to mention that you can find on page 20 of your Mosaicos textbook. Okay, and so this will just give you some different expressions that you can study, whether it be through flashcards or whatnot, to just give yourself some expressions that are commonly used in a typical classroom setting. And so these might not be the most useful things for us right now, since this is an online course, but maybe in a later point in time, if you are in a Spanish face-to-face Spanish classroom setting, these classroom expressions could be very useful. All right, so give those a look, and I will see you in the next tutorial for Capítulo 1, for Chapter 1. Okay, you guys have a great day, and write me any emails at lflint@gc.edu if you have any questions. Have a great day.